I'm sorry for the abrupt ending of the last tape, but they just end sometimes, and I apologize for that because we're just minutes away from finishing up this lecture on the introduction of the law. I was talking about the organic nature of the law. What we're really talking about is this idea that the law can grow, the law can change. It's not stagnant, it's not fixed. And one of the things, as I said, is if you go to the ninth floor of the library and you walk through the volumes and volumes and volumes of legal opinions, we wouldn't need to keep writing the opinions. The courts wouldn't need to keep making decisions if it weren't for the fact that things do change, that the law grows. And in some areas it's very stable. In other areas, it's very vibrant. So keep that in mind. Think of the law as being something that's organic, and I think it will it'll serve you well to think that. I did want to go back and touch on one last thing related to this dynamic that exists, or the tension that exists sometimes between the state law and the federal law. Something that I didn't make clear in the lecture a minute ago is that when there is a conflict, I said that the federal law is supreme if it's an area where there is jurisdiction that exists for both the state governments and the federal government. There's something else that overrides all of that, and that is the Constitution. We have a system in the United States that is a constitutional system. All the states are governed by the federal Constitution. All the people in the United States are governed by the federal Constitution. And it is, in fact, the supreme law. And what I mean by that is that there can be no statute, there can be no regulation, there can be no executive order in the United States, whether it is by the president or by a governor, or whether it is by Congress, or whether it is by a state legislature, or whether it is by a state agency, or whether it's by a city or government. There can be no action of any sort in the United States that is, in fact, at odds with the Constitution. The Constitution has parts that tell us what to do, but it also has parts that tell us what the government cannot do. The government is limited in many respects by the Constitution. But at the end of the day, all aspects of government, all aspects of the relationship between people and their government, or governments actually, because we have a relationship with the city government, the county government, the state government, the federal government, our relationship between us and the government is one that is governed by the Constitution. It's the deal we made at the outset. And if there is a law that is at odds with the Constitution, then that law is unenforceable. If there is an effort by the president or the governor to act in a way that is at odds with the Constitution, it's unenforceable. So the U.S. Constitution is ultimately the supreme law of the United States. And we see that we'll see that a little bit in, for instance, the chapter on procreation rights, where there were a string of decisions for many, many years that said that efforts by state legislatures to restrict abortions were at odds with the Constitution. Now, we have some new decisions. We have the Dobbs case that we're going to talk about at length that week, but you'll see this idea that legislature can speak, the governor can speak, the president can speak, they can say what they think is right, but if it's found to be at odds with the Constitution by the courts, then it's not enforceable. So that's just an important thing to always keep in mind. What I hope is that during the course of this semester, you'll be thinking about the way that the law interacts with healthcare. They're two worlds. They collide with each other regularly. I like to think of this class as being about the collision between the two. It's a collision that's near and dear to me. I've spent most of my professional career working very closely with doctors as a lawyer. I want you to understand how they intersect, how they interact with each other. During the course of the semester, I'll say things that offend you in some way, undoubtedly. I'll say things that offend someone that's near and dear to you. Maybe maybe your father is on the Supreme Court and I've said something terrible about what I think about the Supreme Court's decision on this or that. Or maybe you are a physician and I say something about how stupid physicians are, or I say something about how dumb patients are. I promise you, if I say those things, it's always for the purpose of teaching. So I'll make my one apology for it now, but please understand that when I say something like that, it's because I want to teach, and I want you to understand better the collision between the two noble professions. Thank you very much. I'm sorry about the choppy part of the transition from one video to the next. We'll see how it goes. I'll try to do better this semester. Thanks.